Hello, everybody, and welcome. Happy New Year. We are ready to inaugurate it. Dave has got a couple of specials for us tonight. And I want to remind you right up front, we're having an all-day workshop on Saturday. More about that a little bit later. I'm Jim Pamplin. My partner in the Pacific there is Viju Katungal, and Dave is there. And thank you to REIFax for hosting this event. Viju, I'm going to turn it over to you to welcome our other guests.
Thank you. Happy New Year. I'm going to go ahead and start with the vendors. Oscar, let's start with you.
Thank you, Viju, and thank you everybody for being here. It's a very, very, very special day today for all of us. It's our first meeting. My name is Oscar Echeverri. I've been a member of the DREIA club for over 10 years. Before of that, I always go to the meetings ever since 2001. This year is going to be my 20th year. It's incredible how time passes by. And thanks to DREIA, Viju, Jim, David, for everything that you guys have done for us here with Gaia Construction and Gaia Inspections. So essentially, we are a company that do construction work and remodeling work for investors. We also specialize in doing specific home inspection reports that benefit the investor market. So if you have any questions, any further information that you require, you can call me at 954-882-2672, or you can visit our website at www.gaiagc.com. You can also find us in the DREIA website. And once again, thank you for Viju, Jim, and David, especially. 20 years is an amazing time being with you guys. I'm excited. Thank you. 20 more years to go.
Congrats, Oscar. 20 years, time flies.
Time flies, my friend.
So if you want to know more about Oscar's, how the reports work and how it's really how the inspection report and how we use it in our organization, he's going to talk, explain it on Saturday. We'll talk more about it later on.
I want to ask Oscar something. Oscar, what year was it when you came here to the United States and worked for me on one of my rehab crews?
That was 2001, as a matter of fact, Davey. And I specifically remember how hard it was for me at the beginning because I didn't know any English. I was actually working for a couple that used to handle the project management for Dave Dinkle. And I didn't have any place to sleep or to live. So they allowed me to sleep on the places where I was actually working. So it's a long story, guy. I can tell you.
Well, it's the American dream. You literally went from homeless to very much successful. So
yeah, absolutely. We managed to acquire over 10 properties, and I don't want to tell too much about how we've done it and how much we have achieved, but I have to thank you all the time, David. I have to thank you, Jim Pamplin and Viju Katungal, for all of your support. You're always going to be in my heart. Thank you, guys.
We'll hear more about it Saturday for sure.
All you.
You still don't look more than 20 years old.
46.
Hey there, how you doing?
Good. Your time.
Good. All right, I'm Reed Santiago with Independent Title Fort Lauderdale. We are a closing agency that facilitates any type of real estate transaction from a refinance, short sale, assignment, or double closing. We do originate loans and we do process short sales. So we are fully equipped to handle any type of real estate transaction, and have been working with DREIA for quite some time and are one of their preferred vendors for closing transactions. But yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Usually Jim is here to step in, but I'm filling in for today, and I appreciate you all having me.
Thanks, Reed. You're
No
the better
problem.
looking one.
Hey, what can I say?
Michael.
When it's broken, burnt, or bashed, flooded, smashed, or crashed, it doesn't really start without the team at DREIA. Oscar Eshavari always reminds me of Echo. It's kind of the mnemonic of how I remember your name, Oscar. So I'll just go ahead and echo what he's talking about briefly and remind everybody that today represents 244 years of prosperity here in the North American continent, and the ideals of liberty and freedom. And we are all in some way, shape, or form should be reminded that we are the children and grandchildren of, or even direct immigrants here to America, seeking that prosperity and peace in our lives. And what a momentous day it is here to talk about our individual histories and the history of the group. You guys are talking about, 20 years. I'm talking about 6 or 7 now. But the same story, really. Success and prosperity through the time and education and experiences and people and introductions that I've gained through working with Jim and Oscar and Viju and Dave and everyone through DREIA. It's been an amazing success story. That's why we continue year after year to participate as vendors. What a great thing. We're on our way out of hurricane season that relatively missed us this year. That means during the rest of the year, we're dealing with issues from tenant vandalism or outside third-party actor vandalism, broken pipes, fires, vehicle impacts to our building, and other causes of loss. If you have damage to your home or your commercial rental property, your 2-plex, 3-plex, or 4-plex, we have the FAA licensed drones to be able to document the condition or damage to your roof. We have the 3D VR mapping tools to be able to create a digital replica of the entire interior of any property to show the full scope and value of any damage or loss. We have the thermal cameras to be able to see inside walls for where there may be water or mold or other contaminants that are ruining your property, lowering your property values, or leaving you susceptible to suit by your tenants. Don't let these things happen to your property. Call us here at Adjusterman if you have any kind of damage from fire, theft, escape of water, vandalism, or other damage that you suspect may be covered by your insurance policy. We know how to tell your insurance company what you're really owed under the terms and conditions of your policy so that you recover more. We see more, we prove more, you recover more. It's what we do at Adjusterman. And when it's busted, I'm Michael Clavin at Adjusterman. We'll adjust it. Thank you.
Michael. So that's a big thing. Michael is not only there for hurricane, right, Michael? Hurricane season.
No, definitely not. And, we have the time in the off season now to be utilizing some of our tools to help investors as they're looking at their properties or they're turning properties over to a tenant. One of the great things that we do is a 3D Matterport. This is a 3D visualization of the entire interior of a property. It's accurate to within 1%. But it shows the absolute condition of a property when it's turned over to a tenant. Were there any holes in the wall? Were there pre-existing damages of any kind? Was the paint perfect? Was the tile perfect? And then, a year or 2 or 3 years later, they're turning it back over to you. And that property, what's the condition of the property? Is the property damaged more than just reasonable wear and tear? Did they cause intentional damage? Are there maybe holes punched in walls or cabinet doors kicked off of cabinets? These type of vandalisms are things that we can prove to your insurance company as directed intentional acts and can allow you to keep the security deposit, giving you, the reason that you need to be able to establish, why am I keeping the insurance? Why am I keeping the security deposit? To pay for the damages, pay for my deductible. Why am I filing the insurance claim? Because these damages were done intentionally by my tenant or possibly some third party that they abandoned the property to. Hey, my cousin moved in. They were supposed to pay the rent, take care of the lease. I moved out, right? We've seen these odd things happen with tenants. And so oftentimes we have, bad actors that come in to be control or possession of our properties. that have to be evicted for many different reasons, and they do damage on the way out. This is a form of vandalism that your insurance policy may be responsible for paying for if you got the right coverage. And then, we establish the scope and value of the loss, and you could turn to somebody like Oscar to complete the build back and make sure that your property is brought back to its proper pre-loss condition.
Perfect.
So, the various different components of people that you'll meet and network together through, or the skill sets that you can find that interact within the group, is also, really excellent.
Perfect. Thank you. Becky.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Becky Kremenko with Real Estate IQ, and we have leads. So we have of motivated sellers. We have in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, Liz pendants, pre-foreclosure, probate, evictions, liens, delinquent taxes, code violations. And if your New Year's resolution is to start marketing for deals, we'll give you our leads right now for 3 months for just $1. So you can get started at almost no cost. If you want to skip trace the leads so that you can call them, we can do that as well. Or you could upgrade to our premium package where you get the leads and the skip tracing information is already attached there for you. Also, this Saturday, if you've already done the DREIA quick start, don't listen to this if you haven't done that yet. Do that first. But if you've already done the DREIA quick start, we're doing a really big online conference. So realestateiq.co, and I'll put the whole website in the chat that you can go to register for that conference, as well as the promo code and the link to get that trial for $1. So thank you all and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank.
Erica. You're muted.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Happy New Year. I hope everybody's holiday was good and healthy. My name is Erica with Creative Title Services. I have over 28 years of title experience. We specialize in double closing, trust closing, assignments, regular conventional loans as well. Anything you guys need, we are available 24/7. My staff is always taking calls on the weekends, after hours, answering text messages. Whatever you need, we're here to help. Our number is 305-476-8733, 305-476-8733. Thank you.
Erica, can you put your information on the chat, please?
I will do that right now.
Everybody else, please put your information in the chat.
Absolutely.
Francisco.
I'm Francisco Mago with REIAFacts.com. Happy New Year to everyone. We're basically, we work for you guys. We make you money. We find deals for you. Not only we analyze the property, find leads, sign contracts, skip trace, but the only thing we don't do yet is actually finding the check for you. We're leaving that part to you yet. So we're going to be with the DREIA team. We're going to be on Saturday talking about new technologies, talking about social media, and talking about a little bit driving for dollars and the tools, the tools or the mobile apps that you can use for driving for dollars and be more successful in your business.
So also we're going to spend a good amount of time on Saturday to show you how we use REIAFacts to run our business. Great event. Try it if you guys have time. It's free for members. Jim, I know.
Right. I mean, we're actually going to show you. You guys have seen Dave and Francisco put up these grids. There are 13,000 short sale leads in the Tri-County area. We're actually going to show you the leads, show you what's available, and show you how to make an offer. You're going to see it. It's not just talk. We're going to do it live for you. Dave always advised me, don't do it live, Jim. But we're going to do it because I teach my classes this way, and this is how we're going to do it. It's going to be great fun. Now, Oscar and Viju are presenting as well. Guys, why do people need to see what you're going to present?
Oscar, you want to talk about? Well, let me say, it's what Oscar do for us is he create these incredible reports what we use to get discounts. He will go in and his team will tell us what is wrong with the property, and with his general contractor experience, they will tell us what it will cost. And you'll have a report with pictures and numbers to prove it. You want to jump in it, Oscar? So we are going to show you those reports and see how that works.
Yeah, that is correct. As a matter of fact, we calculate more or less on every single report, we make our clients about $15,000. That's just an approximate. And in some cases, depending on the circumstances, the savings go over $45,000, depending on the property. I always tell the story about a brand new condominium in downtown Miami. It was a $3 million apartment. And the guy asked me if I can find something wrong with it. I said, yeah, let's go take a look. And then we start looking at the countertops and several other items in the bathroom and the finishes. And we calculated more or less that it was $30,000 worth of minimum repairs that were required. And basically in a $3 million deal, $30,000 is nothing. So he just requested the $30,000 reduction. It was given to him right away. But it's just the way how you explain it, how you put it on paper, how you take the pictures, and how you structure something for an investor or a client to actually show to the seller and create leverage in that way. And I cannot put anything that is not true in this report because I have 2 licenses that are on the line, and I have to be very careful how to word things. And at the end, it's always a win-win situation, because even if you don't get the deal, even if you don't get the discounts, you know very well what you're getting into and whether or not you're capable of handling the situation or not. So I'm open to questions on Saturday. I invite you all to participate in a meeting, and I look forward to it. Thank you, Vijay.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, Oscar. One of the things that's going to happen on Saturday, we'll be presenting all day, but everyone will get a chance to answer the questions. You can visit DREIA.com and register for the meeting. If you're not a member, you can click through on membership plans, and it's a great value. Non-members are $2.99, but it's free for all members, and membership has lots of opportunities during the year. We will be back at the Country Club soon, but I hope you'll join us, because it's going to be questions and answers and lots of real practical information. Somebody asked me, can I leave there knowing how to make an offer? Well, I'll tell you this. You're going to know how we make an offer, and you're going to see how we do it. And there's nothing to stop you from buying REIA and doing it. You're going to learn how our students learn and what they do, and you're going to see from them their real experiences in this last quarter. This is not something we talked about from 3 years ago. This is something we're doing now. During the pandemic, people are making money. So we hope you'll join us on Saturday. Visit DREIA.com.
It's from 9:30 to 4. I know somebody, guys, if you have any question, go ahead and type it in and we'll answer it while
someone is asking where it's going to take place, but
it's online.
Right here.
Right in the comfort of your home. Just think, you can have your own lunch, you can get a drink when you want to, and nobody's going to know. And free parking. That's the best part.
I'm going to be having a drink.
The truth, I think, for anybody that attends probably 4 or 5 DREIA meetings, whether they're online or in person, you will absolutely realize the value of the education and the connections that you make in this group to realize the value of your time and find something that you're going to take out of here to use and actualize with, that's going to turn you profits and return you the value, literally the cash value, and significantly more for the time and effort that you make to participate in this group. That's my personal experience.
Vijay, anything else before I turn it over to Dave? I have a couple of announcements to make before I do that.
Well,
No,
let me say one thing before you do your announcements. Oscar and I sat down together at the end of 2018 and looked at what students had made because they used his reports in addition to whatever the profit was they would have had in the first place. And I think we came out with about $14 million, correct, Oscar?
Yeah, that is correct.
So when you talk about a $15,000 or $50,000 extra profit, we've had them as big as $120,000 extra profits. Those reports are killers. They're well worth the money. So go
Oh,
ahead.
and also, it's not just me, Jim, and Dave talking. We have John, Aaron, we have Aisha, we have
Matthew?
Matthew, students and people who are in the business doing stuff. I have Martin from a lending company who's going to be talking about how to work with hard money lenders. So it's just a packed day where we're going to, for the price, if you guys can, you'll get something out of it to get your investing going for the year.
Now, Dave will have a little more to say about it, but I want to also let you know, same time next month, on February 17th, we're going to have back Mr. Bill Knoll, attorney and CPA. We're going to talk about accounting. If you remember him from a couple of years ago, he took over from Al Aiello, just a fantastically brilliant guy when it comes to tax planning, accounting planning. You're going to marvel at him. So please look for the emails and join us on Wednesday, February 17th. Without further ado, you guys are here for the New Year message, that inaugural speech from Dave Dinkle. So we're going to start, Dave.
Okay. All right, guys, thanks very much. Glad to be here. I want to mention one thing about Saturday. I did the presentation last year, and Jim said to me, kind of look at the same presentation you did last year. Well, I couldn't find it. And I decided I like to rewrite the stuff. When you guys have been around for a while, you know that my material is current. It should be, because I write it every time, and it takes me a long time to do it. But I'm saying this because I'm going to have it open to questions. And if you have questions, one of the things I would do is try and submit them tonight to make sure that I get them on Saturday. So I've got a whole agenda for you. Midday, I forget what time it is, but putting it together for you, and you'll do it. Now, on what I'm going to do tonight is, as I said to you, it's going to be a two-parter. I'm going to talk about sequencing first, but what I have done, I don't know how many times now, but for a number of meetings, is I've actually put the presentation together, videoed it, and I play the video. And the reason I do that is because I tend to get off track with stuff, which is important, but we only have so much time. So to keep to time constrained and do that. The other thing is I am going to open it for questions at the end, which I don't typically do, but think of questions in the interim. You're going to see the first sequencing that I talk about, and I'll start it up here.
Our topic today is sequencing is the answer to more consistent and much more profitable deals. Here's an in-depth look at the very critical part of your long-term strategy as an investor. This is what has been called the single most important aspect of getting great deals. Sequencing is the next step above following up on offers that you made to sellers. It's essentially following up on steroids. It is the ultimate method of getting new deals, large profit deals, and having a consistent deal flow. There is no question that following up after a seller says no is where the real money is made. The generally accepted belief now is that it takes 6 to 8 touches with a seller to get a closed deal. Let's first look at the standard follow-up in the form of written, email, direct calling, and most recently texting. In 99% of the cases where investors make offers to seller and they get a rejection, they quit and go to the next prospect. That's human nature. Some of the calls I get from students sound like this. I got a deal after 3 months of following up. I got a deal after following up for 6 months. I got this deal after following up for 1 whole year. And recently I got one that said, I got this deal after following up for 3 years. The longest time that I know of came to me and my wife after we had made an offer to the homeowner 5 years previously. So what does this look like in terms of time invested? We're talking about 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. Assume it takes 5 to 10 minutes to call and check in with the seller or to initiate another form of contact. Let's further assume that you have to do this 8 times to get the deal closed. So in other words, 40 to 80 minutes. So when a deal closes, and for an average of let's say 60 minutes or an hour, you made how much? $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $40,000 or even more? Yeah, that's a pretty good hourly rate in any industry. That's not so bad, is it? But what if you could accelerate this process and automate it at the same time? That's what sequential marketing is all about. What about the ones that you did not follow up on and they didn't close? Assuming it wasn't your fault, that's the nature of the beast. You can't get every deal you ever see. By following up, you'll get 5 to 50 times more deals than not following up at all. Let's look at traditional follow-up that happens in 99% of the cases. Investor gets a list of what should be motivated sellers. And understanding how motivated sellers think is the key to staying in the business. Even though they're supposed to be motivated because of a time frame of a sale or an aggravation or an uncomfort level with the property, it doesn't mean they're ready to sell until it's almost too late or they just simply lose the property. You contact them by one method, typically a phone call, email, or direct mail. You wait for a response, wait for a response, and wait for a response, and frankly, none come. You follow up at a pre-designated time. If you're unable to contact the seller, you simply move on. Or you get a response, but it's a no, so you move on. So what can be done better to scrape out some of these deals? Let's first look at what contact methods are usual and customary. Phone calls, direct mail, either letters or postcards, flyers, door hangers, phone calls, texts, or ringless voicemails. Our personal experience with pre-foreclosures and direct mail. We created a series of 6 standalone letters, each on a different pastel colored paper with a colored envelope to match. When I say standalone, that means that the second letter didn't say I sent you a letter already. Third letter didn't say, I've sent you 2 letters, you're going to lose your house if you don't hurry up and answer. Fourth one gets mean. No. Each one of them was separate, a standalone on their own. The idea being that each one was designed to touch some aspect of that seller's life that the previous letters didn't do. Depending on the pending sale date, we mailed the first letter as soon as possible as the list penance went into the public record. We then started mailing the remaining 5 on a 7 to 10 day cycle. The results. Well, simply nothing happened, or the homeowners would call by the end of the 3rd or 4th letter. We would schedule an appointment and make a presentation. Typically, the homeowners would have every mail piece in front of us when we sat down to talk to them and make our belly-to-belly presentation. Usually, there were between 150 and 250 pieces and our pieces. How could we tell? Very simply because of the pastel-colored letters and pastel-colored envelopes if they were still attached to the letters. As I say, our pieces were obvious because they were pastel colors. Probably 30% of the pieces were exactly the same, as the investors bought a course that said this specific mailing piece was a killer. And what did they do? They duplicated the same exact letter except their name and address was on it, or different phone numbers. But it was very silly, especially to see postcards that the postal department sends out automatically, all in the same exact format. The question that any correspondent should answer from the seller's standpoint is quite simple. What's in it for me, and why are you different? When you go to write a letter to a seller with any kind of problem, you have to reset your mind to be in the terrified mindset of the seller who could lose his home, or in the mindset of the seller who simply wants out of this headache or get cash from an estate. No matter how good your letter is, it must be read by the seller. Usually a postcard follows your letter because it doesn't have to be opened, and that was sometimes helpful. If you're not going to mail pastel-colored envelopes, what I would suggest you use is very simply an invitation-sized envelope, handwritten, so the party receiving it appears to be looking at an invitation to a party. At least that will help get it open. The most successful sequencing for short sales and pre-tax deed sales is the 3x3x3 method. The series of contacts with a homeowner goes as follows. Letter, postcard, door knock, which repeats twice more if necessary. The results are that 85 to 90% of the sales come from the door knocking aspect. What happens is the postcards and letters are a warm-up for the person to come to the door and knock. What is happening is the direct mail pieces warm up the prospect, and he's now more receptive when somebody knocks on his door or calls him if the property is non-owner occupied. This technique has been used very successfully by attorneys and investors who are licensed agents. This allows them to get the short sale negotiation fees, profit from the resale, and at least 2.5% of the sales price. Besides the above profit center, attorneys will also receive the income from the closing cost charges. Who does the door knocking in this case? The attorney or investor hires local agents and trains them using a specific presentation to the homeowner. In the case of the attorney, he's simply interested in getting a listing approval through the short sale. He is not concerned whatsoever about how good the price is. He just wants to get an approved price from a loss mitigation rep at the lender so he can list it on the MLS and get it sold. Now, if he is especially aware of people's sales ability, the door knocks are done by different agents. The ones who get the most contracts are the ones who get the most leads. With an investor, the issue is the approved price has to be at a point where the property can be resold. Very oftentimes when I talk to investors, they're not aware that there is an approval letter that comes with the short sale process. That comes typically the day before or even the day of closing, which has to be signed by the investor buyer and by the seller. And it basically is a disclosure that says they're not related to one another. The investor's not giving the seller any money. There's no under the table deal that was made, so on and so forth. But the problem comes up when there is a restriction on the resale of the property. The most recent one that I see on a regular basis is that the closing agent that's doing that transaction cannot do another transaction for that property for at least 1 year. In other words, they can do an A to B closing, but they can't do a B to C closing for that property. What typically happens in these scenarios is that closing agent does the A to B transaction. You walk across the street to another closing agent and you have them do the B to C over there. The worst case scenario is there is a deed or transfer restriction. 30 days, 90 days, could be as much as 180. It's solely a function of either what the terms of the contract are, such as with Fannie Mae, or what the loss mitigation rep feels is fair or unfair to investors. This sequencing can also be used successfully for pre-tax deed sale, with the only difference being the time between the contacts. And this sale is more difficult, but not impossible to postpone the sale. You're going to hear from a lot of people, there's no way to postpone a tax deed sale. That's not true. There is one Thor's hammer to stop and postpone a tax deed sale, and there's only one Thor's hammer that will do that. The consensus in the industry today is that an investor gets his deals after 8 touches with his prospects. What's a touch? It's one of the sequencing techniques that we just talked about before. We're going to go into more detail now. Savvy investors are using most or all of the traditional methods in their sequential contacts. SMS or texting, RVMs or ringless voicemail, direct mail, flyers, door hangers, cold calling, and door knocking. Successful investors are using SMS, as I said, texting, but they're usually doing 10,000 plus texts a month. When they talk about their results in their interviews, they don't tell one of the most important aspects of texting. That is that 30 to 40% of these texts are follow-ups on the previous text or RVM contacts. Unfortunately, most mega investors focus on one of the above methods, spending tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars monthly to scrape out a few closed deals. Their cost per closed deal for advertising alone can run from $3,250 to $8,500 per deal. Factoring in staff and other general expenses can easily double these costs per deal. A better option for beginning investors who want to scale their business and have consistent deals is to develop their sequencing or follow-up systems early in their career. Using a CRM or customer relationship management system to automatically alert you when the next contact should go out is immensely helpful. Some CRMs will do SMS and RVMs automatically and automatically generate your letters and postcards on schedule. The most important contact that you can do, and eventually will have to do, is talking directly to the seller. Whether it is you or a sales assistant, it's unlikely that the seller will just sign and never ask any questions. Using SMS and RVMs, you can easily add 2 contact methods very quickly to your follow-up sequence. If you have a limited budget, then calling is your only option. You must call on a consistent and persistent follow-up basis until the owner blocks your number or he gets a restraining order. While this has never happened, I can guarantee you that multiple calls have gotten tons of deals and many millions in profits for investors. If you're going to use multiple calls, then make up a reason to call for each phone call ahead of time. Each call should first answer the owner's question, "Why are you calling me now?" So what do successful sequencing patterns actually look like? First method, very simple. Call, 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 and call. The time between the calls is determined by the urgency of the owner to solve his problem and could be as little as daily to every 2 weeks to a month. Method number 2 is any combination of the following: direct mail, door hanger, flyer, cold call, SMS, RBM, email, and door knocking. For example, direct mail is a credibility piece, cold call, text, postcard, ringless voicemail, cold call, door knock, email, and text. If you're thinking, what's my risk if the seller is on the do not call list or is a litigious person? Sort them out before you send your prospects anything. There are people who do this full time, meaning texting or SMS and ringless voicemail or RVM, and it's cheap if you compare it to being sued. In summary, if you have your script and prepare for doing any of the above follow-up methods and put them into motion using a qualified motivated seller list, you should be successful. If you're not, you need to reevaluate what you're saying to the people. Instead of talking about yourself, you need to talk about what's bothering them. They're hot buttons, whether they be a sales date that's looming or just an aggravation with the property. What we're seeing currently is more and more landlords in the 3 to 4, 5 year hold period trying to get out of their properties because of litigious and unruly tenants. This way you're also going to have a consistent lead flow instead of the horrific ups and downs of lead generation that only one or two of the methods provide. In closing, I recently saw this survey from Forbes magazine. Why are salespeople burning out? And if you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't like salespeople, I'm not a salesperson, give it up, you are. From the time you're born and you scream for food, that's what you did to sell your mom on the fact that you're hungry. All through your life, you've been a salesperson when you wanted to get something from somebody else. In this business, you're going to be a salesperson and you're going to help the people that are the sellers. They have a problem, you have a solution, and you get paid extremely well for providing that solution. But Forbes magazine was talking about a lot of the salespeople in the industry burn out on a regular basis. And the question was, why is this happening? There was 4 specific reasons that I chose to follow here. They don't have coaches or mentors. They go into the business, they have scripts, they get off the scripts, they don't follow them, they get careless, their closing ratios go down, pretty soon they're not making enough of a living, and they're out of the business. They don't have the latest sales tools. What does that look like? Looks like very simply they don't have a coach or mentor who sees a broad range from a 30,000 foot view down to what is everybody doing and how is it working. It's extraordinarily interesting and effective for me to do transactional funding in 30 different states and seeing investors in every one of those states come to me for a transactional funding. So I get to see the A to B, B to C closings. I would say to you that out of 100 closings that I do, at least 75% are $25,000 or more in size. The other 25% are somewhere between $50,000 to $200,000 or more. Now, why don't I see 10,000 and 3,000? Because those are easily assignable contracts. When somebody comes to me with one that's going to net them $5,000 or $3,000 before the closing costs are subtracted, I talk to them about, can't you do an assignment? More and more states have passed regulations or are moving towards outlawing, so to speak, or not allowing assignments of contracts. That movement has been pushed by the realtors who believe that by assigning a contract when the investor has no money in the deal, effectively, he's just brokering the transaction. So as you know, Ohio has passed that, Illinois is into it, and 2 other states are working on it. They don't understand that the data and insights are their secret weapons. What's the data and insights? That's the results of what's happening to them as well as other people around them using same or similar or newer techniques. They don't have a playbook. And that means simply they don't have a track. What they're told to do in their telemarketing is make the call, make the presentation, answer these objections, close on the phone. And their closing rate, if they are very successful and good at doing it, is typically 1% or less on a single call. It wouldn't be much harder for them to do follow-up calls and sequentially following up with other techniques to close many more deals. The industry that I see the most follow-up in terms of direct cold calling is the extended warranty on your automobile. I can say to you that I probably get 2 calls a week from the same company trying to sell me an extended warranty policy on cars that I haven't owned in 5 years or more. Their data, just as I mentioned above, isn't accurate. They don't know any better. It's just a numbers game to them. So I ask this question of you. Are you lacking in any of the above or all of these things? No coaching, no latest sales tools, no data or insights that you could use, and do you have a playbook? But as I always say, why not you? There's no reason in the world that you can't do this except for the fact that you haven't tried and haven't gotten started. So again, my name is Dave Dinkle. I wish you limitless success in all that you do. I want to talk about 12 critical questions from new investors that I keep getting over and over again. What is the biggest obstacle to new investors? Now, a lot of people are going to have a lot of different opinions about what this is, especially if you're new in the business and not getting started as quickly as you'd like to. But the bottom line on getting started and the biggest obstacle to new investors is simply they don't make enough offers. And if your mindset is, well, I can't make offers because I don't understand how to do it, you need to get focused on the ritual of where you start out, where you begin, picking the best contract to use, and so on. But you have to make offers. You have to fail forward, and you should learn from every offer that's either rejected or, more importantly, accepted. How long should it take to determine the perfect offer for a property? Now, I've seen investors take anywhere from 20 minutes to as much as 4 hours to determine the perfect offer for a property. But in the real world, if you're going to do this and do it very successfully, to make your initial offer, the answer is a very few minutes. Because frankly, it doesn't matter. If you offer too much, you're going to have your offer accepted, even if you think it's too low. And if you offer too little, your offer is going to be rejected, obviously, which is what the result is that you should have gone for in the first place, rather than offering too high. Now, there's 2 sets of schools in the industry, one of which is as soon as a property comes out on the MLS, for example, you offer too much money, within 5% of the list price or whatever, knowing that you can't resell that property. Get it under contract, you try and work the price down, you can't do it, cancel the contract, and what happens? The agent's been out of shape, seller's mad, and what you've done is you've tainted the property, which is wonderful for the other investors who come along and make lower offers. But whatever your system is for making offers, whether it's a percentage of the list price, a percentage of something else, maximum allowable offer formula, or whatever, you need to be making offers, and you need to come up with this evaluation in a very few minutes. Well, what about if it needs a lot of repairs? That's pretty straightforward and simple. You can use software that estimates the repairs, or you can use a rule of thumb. For so many square feet, it's X dollars. Larger square footage, it's less dollars, but there's more square footage, so on and so forth. Again, how accurate is it? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're making offers and you can readjust them afterwards if you get them under contract. How good are tax deed sales to get deals? Well, they're both terrible or they're excellent. I say they're terrible because what you're doing if you have to go to the sale, you're bidding against other people that either know exactly what they're doing or they don't know what they're doing at all. So you're going to have to pay too much to get the property. Why do I say they can be excellent? Because if there's no other liens on the property that the tax deed sale will knock off, then you don't go to the tax deed sale. You buy it from the homeowner directly before the tax deed sale and save it from going to sale. Once again, let's say it has a $250,000 mortgage on it. You're not going to wipe out that mortgage or a second mortgage in addition by getting it from the homeowner directly. You're going to have to let it go to sale. What purchase and sale contract should I use as an investor? Well, there's literally online probably hundreds or even thousands of contracts that investors use. And the old adage that a contract can be written on the back of a napkin, I imagine is absolutely true, although I've never seen one. But as long as it contains the fundamentals, what each state requires in a contract, it's most likely going to be legal. So it could be 1 page, 2 pages, or like most realtor contracts and bar-approved contracts, it's going to be somewhere between, 7 and 15 pages at least, plus addendums. Why are they so big? That's to protect the listing agent, to protect the bar association member, and supposedly to protect the seller. You have to understand what contracting is all about, especially if you don't like contracting, because that's your power when a seller or an end buyer doesn't come to closing. How many days inspection should I get? Obviously, you get as many as you can, but typically what you want to go for is a minimum single family home, 10 to 30 business days. If you're going to do raw land or commercial properties, you want to look at a minimum of 30 days, up to 120 days or more, but you don't call it an inspection period. You now call it a due diligence period. How can you defeat black hat wholesalers? This is a very important question, and it's ironically something that's kept new investors from coming into business. They're concerned about other people stealing their deals. But the answer is know your buyers, file a notice of interest, interaction with your seller. If they love you, they're not going to go sell it to someone else. Warn sellers ahead of fraudulent conversion. That's what they're going to set themselves up for if they go in and sign a contract with somebody else. And I think it's important that you talk to your seller and say, now that we've signed the agreement, I want to warn you ahead of time that somebody else may come in here who's an unscrupulous investor, possibly offer you more money, tell you our contract's not valid, and you may be induced to say, gosh, why don't I take more money? If you do, what's going to happen is these guys all do the same thing. They just simply don't come to closing, and when they finally do, they get a different price from you because you're now desperate to close, and you wind up actually receiving less money than I would have given you in the first place. I want to mention notice of interest. It's very, very important. I started doing these 25 or more years ago, and I've talked about them a number of times. Other guys in the industry have picked up on it. And they literally have misused it so much that a number of states have, I'm not going to say outlawed them, but they have pulled regulations against them. They have put regulations in effect that causes it to be more difficult to file a notice of interest. In most realtor contracts, they now say that you cannot file a notice of interest in the public record. I have a separate video on interview with a closing agent where I talk about filing a notice of interest properly, what to call it rather than a notice of interest, how to have the evidence and proof, because you may have to go to trial, or you may have a judge say your NOI, whatever you're going to call it, because you shouldn't call it a notice of interest anymore, is invalid. Or you find an attorney or closing agent who in fact is going to do a closing, and what he does is he writes over your notice of interest. So if you do these things right, they're a Thor's hammer, they're strong, they will stop the conversion or resale of the property in many, many, many cases. However, if you don't know what you're doing and you do them wrong, they are of little or no value. What is the absolute best way to find motivated sellers? The first and foremost thing you need to do is use some sort of data subscription or data source where you can sort for motivated sellers. And when you sort for those motivated sellers, the important part is you stack filters for why they should be motivated. Not going to go into depth here, but basically non-owner occupied, vacant, pre-foreclosure, pre-tax deed sale, on and on and on. You stack those filters where you get 2, 3, 4, or 5 of them on top of one another, and you should have a motivated seller. But to answer the question, the absolute best way is cold calling. It's the most uncomfortable for some people, but it still ranks as the #1 way overall to get deals. Do I really need a CRM? CRM is a customer relationship management tool or software. And my answer is very simple. Only if you want to follow up. If you're going to contact people by mail, text, postcards, any number of things once, or maybe twice, or maybe 3 times, and you're not really following up by cold calling and doing some of the things you should do in addition to those, you don't need a CRM. The most important tool that you have in this industry is the CRM. So you consistently follow up on a regular or irregular basis because the money is in the follow-up. When I started in the business 1,000 years ago, it seems like, I took a 3x5 card. And when I contacted somebody, I'd write the information down and I'd file that in a tray of 3x5 cards. In that tray, it would have January, February, March, monthly dividers. Inside those dividers, it would have weekly. And what I would do is simply, if this was a Monday, spoke to a seller, told him I was going to call back at a certain time, I would put it in that date. In other words, week 3 of month 3 at a certain time and so on. So that got to be pretty interesting because I had a lot of 3x5 cards. But it worked. And then software came along where I could set up a CRM. And I found out that it was interestingly difficult to try and master some of the early CRMs because they weren't designed simply. They were designed for salesmen who collected a lot of background information on the client themselves. So I wound up going to a simple Excel spreadsheet. Every time I contacted somebody, I'd put at the top of the list Next day, put those at the top of the list. And on my follow-ups, I would go to the bottom of the list. And I would start calling from the bottom. If I couldn't get them, they went to the top of the list. And it was a rotating Excel file sheet that worked very well, frankly. Since then, of course, there are CRMs everywhere. And nearly any real estate investor who is going to be successful in time needs to look at CRMs. Now, people ask me all the time, why don't you give me the name of what everybody's using and the exact website so I can go and get that? Sometimes I do that. Most of the time I don't. The reason is the websites, the guys don't last in many cases. A lot of these products they come up with are interesting, but they can't get enough subscribers because there's competing software all around them. So if you want to be successful in real estate investing, you're going to have to do follow-up. Whatever the sequencing type of follow-up is, you better have a CRM. Now, this is a pretty common question. Why can't I just assign all my contracts? If you watch YouTube videos, and I watch them now out of a curiosity, I told people in the past, don't watch YouTube videos. You're going to go in all kinds of different directions. One person's going to say one thing. Another one's going to say another thing. In fact, those things probably work for each of those people, but they may not work for you. So one of the predominant drum beats I hear across the internet all the time is go out and get your assignment contract signed, find your end buyer, blah, 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 on and on. Well, that's fine, except for if you don't want to make a living, then do an assignment of contract on every one you do. Now, why do I say that? Because the average assignment fee is around $1,500 to $2,500. The average wholesaling fee, if done correctly, is somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000. I recently heard a guy that's doing over 100 deals a year talking about how all he does is assign his contracts. There was a flashback for me because a few years ago, and I wrote a text on this particular person. He came to me and he said, I'm going to do 130 closed transactions this year. And I said, wonderful. Why do you need me? He said, well, the problem is I'm not making enough money on them. Now, at that time, he had 4 employees and himself. So you guys, if you're listening to this and doing over 100 deals a year, if you have more than 4 employees, you may have 3 too many. I don't know. Depends on how you do it. And of course, the story is, well, if I delegate all the responsibility, I don't have to worry about it. But he said to me, I know I'm not doing something right. He used to come to every one of the meetings I had when I was with the local REIA. And he said, I know you can fix this for me. I said, okay. How much are you making when all the smoke cleared? Don't tell me gross and stuff like that. What's your net profit on average on your 130 deals? And he said $10,000 plus or minus $100. I mean, it's pretty close. So I said, okay, so what you want me to do is tell you how to get from $10,000 to 20 or 25. And he said, yes. I said, okay, here's how you do it. And in less than 5 minutes, his whole business strategy had changed. And the text I wrote about him is how to make $200,000 a month in real estate investing. And what happened is it was just that very simple thing to do. Now, he wasn't assigning his contracts, but I mentioned this about the assignment of contracts with the other guru I was talking about because he's not making enough money. Because if he can assign those, and as he says, I'm making 20,000, I made 30,000 the other day. It's very likely he could make 30 to 50,000 or more if he did it differently. It's not my job. What I look for is people who want to come into the business, change their lives, not get stuck on helping guys who are doing 50, 100 or more deals a year do twice as many or twice as large. So the question is, why don't I just assign all my contracts? Well, you can, no question. The issue is if you're going to take too large a profit, or your seller won't allow it, or your buyer won't allow it because he doesn't want you to use his money to close, or in the case of more and more states won't allow you to assign your contract, exercise an option contract, and on, or oftentimes the closing agent won't allow it, then you have to double close. I would say that at least 30% of the phone calls I get for transactional funding sound like this. Hi, my name's Joe. Tell me how the program works. Well, here's what I do. I do transactional funding, fund 100% of the A to B, get paid on the B to C side. By the way, Joe, when is this supposed to close? Well, actually, I ran into a little problem. It has to close today at 2 o'clock. What's the little problem you ran into? Well, I did an assignment contract with my original seller, and when I got to the closing table, the closing agent told me I can't assign my contract to the end buyer because the title insurance company will not allow them to use the end buyer's funds without a disclosure that says to the original seller, Joe is not buying the property. It's being bought by Steve, and Steve's money is closing and selling it to you. And of course, the issue is too big a profit spread is on the HUD statement, the closing statement, the ALTA statement, or CD, whatever it's called with that closing agent. The seller will know exactly what your profit is, and the end buyer will too. And for the sake of, I'm going to save the second closing cost, many a giant deal have been lost. It's called penny wise and pound foolish. The better option is to say to your end buyer, you know, Jimmy, I'm really not making much on this deal. I need some help on it. It's important that you pay my closing cost. And if he says no, say, well, look, I always do that. I have to make that work because of my spread. I'll split it with you, split the closing cost with you. That works 99% of the time. But if you don't ask, you won't receive. And the power you have in this business, I'm telling you now, is a bigger buyer's list. What is the easiest way to increase my wholesale profits on every deal? This brings up an issue of where are your deals coming from. If they're coming direct from sellers, like many investors believe, you can't get any deals that are listed on the MLS. And then you simply go back and you work backwards in terms of getting a price reduction with the seller. If they're listed, and the axiom in the business, I started this axiom myself, if it's listed for more than 5 days, it's not a deal. However, I have to say to you that 95% of the deals that we do through our mentoring program are done on the MLS listed properties. And the average deal on those is over $20-some thousand. So it's a matter of the mindset. If you don't believe it'll happen to you, it will not. But the answer is very simple. If it's a listed property, you go back and ask for a repair credit on the HUD, not a price reduction. Because a price reduction sounds like you're stealing something from me. With an agent, the price reduction means one thing. How much do you want? Oh, $10,000. Well, that's $600. You know, you came to me and said I was going to get the full commission if I went with you, and now you're taking away $600 of my commission. Oftentimes they never even show it to the seller. But if you say to them, I need a repair credit on the HUD, and they say, well, what does that mean? And that means that instead of a price reduction, you still get a commission on that amount of the repair credit. Now, what I've noticed probably in the last year when I look at HUD statements, and I look at HUD statements, Altas, CDs, whatever you want to call them, depending on the type the closing agent uses, I see a bigger and bigger trend in repair credits. So there's people out there listening to me, I guess that's a good way to put it. But it sounds better. And if it's not true, it's not going to work. But if it's true, it's an obvious conclusion, a logical conclusion for the seller. Where is wholesaling illegal? Well, frankly, nowhere. And if you jump up and your hair stands on end and talk to me about Ohio and Illinois and Oklahoma coming on board and all that stuff, you don't get it because you have to read the statute to see what they call wholesaling. I think the first one to come on stream was Ohio, and their thing is very simple. All you have to do is become a licensed broker, and then you can wholesale and so on. If you're not, I put out a whole video on it, so I don't want to get into it here. But the reality is, it's not illegal if you wholesale properly. If you're going to assign a contract, exercise an option, that's illegal in some of these states because they consider that wholesaling. They can't talk about, well, I'm going to buy it, close on it, and then resell it because then homeowners wouldn't be able to buy their own home and resell them within a certain time period. So the logic of who is a wholesaler is a function of well-meaning but uninformed legislators trying to be good to their realtor lobby that pays for their reelection and saying, okay, we understand. You guys are right. In fact, when these guys run around and wholesale properties and don't use any of their own money or they don't even close on them, they're actually getting a commission. And the logic is there. So if you do wholesaling properly, it's legal everywhere. What is the one single way to build a massive buyer's list and in a few days? When we talk about a true buyer's list, what we're talking about is people who have bought properties, not wannabes that run around at meetings and trade cards and go to meetups and trade cards and run around and call you on properties you may have on your list and they have no money, no interest. All they're going to do is try and resell the property. Those aren't really the guys that should be on your buyer's list. The ones you need on your buyer's list are simply, in most cases, rehabbers or other wholesalers that buy for other rehabbers, resell to them. So how can you find those guys to go directly to them? Well, there's tons of ways. Everybody talks about going to the foreclosure auction, the tax deed auction, any other auction, sheriff's sale, so on and so forth. Looking in the public record, trying to find people that were cash buyers. All of those things will work and many others. But if you said to me, Dave, what's the fastest way to do it? Very simple. You go and find realtors who are investor friendly and who have a cash buyers list. So let's assume that in your city there's only 10 realtors that actually deal with investors on a regular basis. And what do I mean by regular? They either sell the properties for the investor, and you can find those by looking in the listings on rehab properties. If it's owned by an LLC or a corporation or a land trust or whatever, that's an investor. It's a cash buyer because he couldn't get a loan on it. So you call them and you use your little script. Make your script up ahead of time so that when you call them, you stick to the script. And basically you ask them if they have a cash buyers list that you have deals from time to time below market value. You can say to them, you'll be paid 6 to 20%, and you mean that because what they're going to do is they're going to mark it up, or they're going to get a buyer's commission for coming in, and so on and so forth. You're not signing a listing agreement with them to bring the buyer, and you're not paying them 6% unless you really have a large spread on the property. So let's say you did find 10. And each one of those had between 10 and 20 actual cash buyers. They could have between 50 and 200 if they've been in the business for any amount of time. So now you have 10 times 10 or 10 times 20, but you have real buyers. And that is a crucial way to build a cash buyers list very quickly. So in closing, I always ask this question, why not you? I'm Dave Dinkle, and thanks for listening.
All right, so by mentioning one thing while we're doing this, what I'm writing up for Saturday event is I'm going to go deep diving into these various methods of who to contact, how to contact them, so on and so forth. So I won't actually have it done probably until Friday because I do put a lot of time in these things. So if you're thinking about coming, it's a thought for you. Anything else I can, any questions, by the way, that came up on the chat, because I wanted to answer questions if we had any. Anybody watching the chat?
I'm watching the chat.
Okay, any questions?
So far, I think Jim and I answered most of them. Anything else, guys? If you have any questions for Dave, go ahead and type it in. Not, I think we have a mentoring class coming up, right, Dave?
Yeah, I think we're going to do the, I think I scheduled, let me just see here. I have this fantastic follow-up system that I use for the 4th and the 5th of February is class. We usually take 1 or 2 people, and it's kind of intense. If you haven't heard it or been through it, Thursday you spend all day, not all day, but enough time that you're really tired of talking to me or listening to me. And then on Friday, Jim takes over, does a REIFX training. Partway for the first half is for basics. Second half is for mentor students, and you start making offers. You're in the game. If you're thinking about why haven't I been able to get in the game, I can't tell you. It's fear in most cases. But in our case, what we want to do is we want you to start failing forward right after you start. There's no reason to wait and study, and you got to make offers or it's not going to work. So any questions? Gosh.
Yeah, there's a question, Dave. I think I want you to answer. Is there any deals still in the MLS?
Well, we're doing deals every day off the MLS. I don't think people understand that, you know, I just heard this today again. I have a, excuse me a second. I have a hard money loan that I made. And the person did the rehab, and, you know, he did a great job, and he's got it under contract. And he said to me, anything that goes on the market is sold within minutes. And I hear that from every part of the country, except for this fact. I don't ever see any of those houses. The ones I see day in and day out that are huge profit spreads for investors are not the ones that are rehabbed and not the ones that everybody's buying. You know, a newly married couple or a VA comes in, a veteran comes in to buy a house, he's not going to buy a house to rehab. So we have a definite distinction in the marketplace where there's tons of deals in there, but nobody's looking for them because they believe there are no deals, because there aren't on that side of the market. And I still see when I review deals that our students get, I had 2 today from the same student, new student. So I forget the exact number, but the offering price is like 160 or 70. He offers some ridiculously stupid low price, and they accept it. Now, holy crap. I mean, we're $60,000 below the list price. What's going on? Well, that's when we can analyze the deal. But if he had made an offer of anything above that, he would have gotten it anyway. And probably a lot of other investors would have thought, I'll make a perfect offer, and they're still trying to figure it. What happened is the seller is extremely motivated. They want to get rid of that house, the probate. Don't want the house anymore. Just get me out of the house. That's a motivated seller. So what often tends to be promoted as logical to people may not be the reality of what's actually happening. There's always going to be deals on the MLS. They're always selling, and they're not, look at the pictures and see what they look like. If they're not in perfect shape, then you can make an offer on them. And what have you got to lose? Only what you think you have to lose. Regina had a question. I'm trying to read it here. Can you repeat what you said about the investor needing transactional funding BC? The sale moved up and not being able to use the end buyer's funds. You mentioned something about splitting some profit. I didn't get it. I don't understand the question exactly. Send it to me in an email, Regina. Okay, can you see any other questions?
Well, let me just jump in about that deals. I think we sold 4 properties since between Monday and today. So, and they're all from the MLS. So there are deals there, and we are selling them. So,
Here's a good question. Do you recommend writing the contract at the seller's house because of a lack of a printer? What I suggest you do, if you're going to do a belly-to-belly presentation with a homeowner, you first make the assumption that you're going to be able to get the contract. Print the contract out with the only blank spot on there as the price, because that's what you're going to wind up negotiating when you get out there. One of the things that Nan and I always did with every contract we had signed is I took the time to go through and explain to the seller exactly what they meant. If you remember in the video, I talked about after you are signed, warn them about the fact that these guys, I don't call them black hat wholesaler. I didn't call them black hat wholesalers. I coined the name later. I just call them unscrupulous investors. Okay. And they're going to come by and make the offer. I had a student in El Paso, Texas. He calls me up and he says, I got this property, $90,000. I look at it. It's one property, but it's 2 big houses on the same property. And each house is worth about $180,000. And I said, what's the question? He said, what should I do? And I said, get the contract signed. He said, I've been having a problem with it. Like what? The guy's a trucker. He's not there all the time. I said, well, what are you doing with it? He said, well, I've been advertising it. I said, you've been advertising it? He said, yeah, why not? I said, because that's illegal. Are you licensed as a realtor? And he said, no. I said, well, you have no interest in, you're selling something, you're trying to sell something you don't own, or you don't have an equitable interest. I said, get the contract signed. Well, what happened, of course, is whoever was on his list, and he didn't have more than 10 or 15 people, one of them went directly to the seller and said, hi, this guy doesn't have a contract as I understand it. And the guy said, well, I didn't sign it, but I haven't seen him or whatever. He said, look, he doesn't have a contract and I'm going to make you an offer much more than his. And he did. He made an offer about 140. Ironically, the seller didn't believe him, felt like he was in too big a hurry. And he went back and told the investor. Ultimately, don't do that to yourself. I hear it on a YouTube video every once in a while. Don't worry about getting it under contract. Just go and market it. And the same thing for you guys who are wholesaling other guys' properties. As we saw firsthand, we had an investor locally, a wholesaler, come to us and almost every other, and I'm going to say major investor in the county, and say, guys, I have a problem. Would you please send me a joint venture agreement because I marketed this property and I got caught, and now the DBPR is after my ass, and they got his ass, and not enough times. So I'm telling you ahead of time, if you're just in there wholesaling other guys' deals, putting them on your list, you're opening yourself up to a fine. Now, is the fine a big deal? $1,000 may not be a big fine to you, but what you have to sign after that to get out of it is going to cripple you being profitable or working in the industry. So you better be careful and do things right. Okay, that's enough of that. I get on my high horse every once in a while here. Well, let's do this. If you guys don't know my email address, it's davedinkle@gmail.com, DINKEL. If you have a question, send it to me. I've actually started collecting questions recently because, and this is no, I'm not disparaging anyone, but the questions are really, really, there's an axiom, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I'm collecting them. And it's not the people's problem or fault that are sending them to me. It's what they're listening to online at YouTube University. Here's a very common issue. One guy says, don't worry, if you have a deal, the money will come. Don't worry about building your buyer's list. My axiom is build your buyer's list at the same time you're making offers, because if you get a deal quickly, you don't have any place to do it. Well, Dave, if it's a good deal, the money will come. But the money that's going to come to you is the guy that's going to take most of your profit away. I'm telling you, he's the what I call whale buyers, the big guys who come in there and they know that new investors have a time limit to sell it, and they can, just before the closing, they can come in and say, I got a BPO on it, or I sent my appraiser out there, my contractor look at it again, and I'm sorry, I can't pay $180,000. Now this is the day before the closing. What are you going to do? Oh, what will you pay me? I'm going to pay you 155. And you say, well, I got it 150. Says, well, then I'll pay you 152.5, and I'll pay your closing costs. So you walk away with $2,500 and feel gracious that he did that to you, because otherwise he would have not closed, gone directly to the seller and said, hi, I'm the actual buyer, and here I'm willing to pay you 140,000, and I know Dave was going to pay you 130,000 or whatever the number is. That's black hat wholesaling at its best, and you're going to meet up with it if you don't know what you're doing. So, are there any other questions that?
I think that's it. Jim.
Okay. It's like pulling teeth to get questions out of people, and I'm not sure why, but it's okay.
We're all like this, Dave. We think of them afterwards. Oh, I should have asked that. But look, you'll all have a chance on Saturday if you'll attend. Just visit DREIA.com. We really, really appreciate you. I know this is becoming an old forum for everyone, but we appreciate you very much. Your attendance means I've shouted out to a lot of people I know. We welcome you every time. Please call us if you need to come by the office. We've moved, so call for an appointment. It's easy to see us safely, but call for an appointment, or we can do a private Zoom meeting with you. So, Dave, I'm going to say goodnight and welcome everyone to see us on Saturday. Visit DREIA.com and have a great one.
Great, guys.
Good night.